Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, September 26th, 2024. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, Chris Colby, author of the Homebrew Recipe Bible and Methods of Modern Homebrewing, Adam Ross from Twin Span Brewing, homebrewer Scott Housel, and I finally taste my Mash Your Luck Malt Liquor. And that's in quotation marks. How close did the recipe that Chris and I formulated come to matching the parameters that I rolled in the Mash Your Luck Challenge? And I'll get to roll the dice again to come up with another challenging beer. If you want to support us financially, check out patreon.com/basicbrewing. And many thanks to everybody who's helping out in that way. If you go to patreon.com/basicbrewing, you can see a long list of stuff that you can access if you sign up as a supporter. And many thanks to the new Patreon subscribers who are signing up every week. Your help is very much appreciated. If you're a user of the Patreon iPhone app, starting in November, please use the Patreon website to sign up for new subscriptions. They say Apple is going to start taking a significant chunk of the new subscriptions via iPhone app starting in November. So you can still look at stuff on the iPhone app, but if you sign up for new subscriptions, and that's across the board, I guess, on the iPhone app, starting in November, they're going to take like a third of the proceeds. Financial subscribers have already seen the video that I'm going to post to the public this week. It's the one where Steve Wilkes and I taste Steve's accidental braggot. Usually financial supporters will get a recipe to go along with a beer. But if you've seen the video, there's probably no easy way to write a recipe for the way this braggot came together. It turned out well. Steve did a great job in improvising. He is a Hall of Fame jazz drummer after all. But it's a good example of what could have been a disaster, but it came out delicious in the end. The second version of my honey IPA is in the secondary fermenter now. I racked it on Monday. It took a little longer than the first time around in the fermentation because I used Imperial Pog, which is a Kvike, on the hot porch the first time. This time I just used USO5 inside the house. There are a few variables that are different this time around. I added a bit of bittering hops at the beginning of the boil this time. I used the mash function of my Warthog system to keep the hop stand temperature at 180 degrees Fahrenheit instead of letting it fall naturally. I used a different yeast, different fermentation temperature, and I added 3 more ounces of Cryo Cascade at dry hopping along with the 6 ounces of Centennial. Other than that, it's the same beer. It'll be fun to taste those side by side. As you'll hear, I fermented the beer that we'll taste in this show with L17 Harvest from our friends and sponsors at Imperial Yeast. I did have to dust off my stir plate to make a starter because the Postal Service took 4 days to deliver what should have taken 2, and the cold pack that shipped with the yeast melted. However, stepping up what remained of that yeast did the job, and the harvest performed beautifully. Normally, I don't have to make a starter for moderate gravity 5-gallon batches. Those 200 billion cells in each easy-to-open package of Imperial usually have my airlocks bubbling before bedtime. And cider lovers, be sure to get some of the current seasonal yeast from Imperial, A40GF Bubbles. I've been forgetting to say the GF part. The GF stands for gluten-free, because Bubbles is produced with 100% gluten-free media. Imperial Bubbles is beautiful for fruit juice-based fermentations, and I've used it for hard seltzer too. Ask your local homebrew store about A40GF from Imperial. Check out all the dependable deliciousness at imperialyeast.com. That's imperialyeast.com. Okay, let's get the gang together and drink some homebrew, quote-unquote, malt liquor. Scott Housel, welcome back to Basic Brewing Radio.
Thanks for having me, James.
Adam Ross of Twin Span Brewing in Bettendorf, Iowa. Welcome back.
Happy to be here.
And for the first time in this format, we have a fourth, and it's Chris Colby from down in where are you at? You're down south of Austin, down there in Texas.
In Elon Musk land, apparently.
It's musky.
He just bought or he just moved, the remnants of Twitter to my town.
Oh boy.
Oh,
Oh, well, so it's just a temporary thing then.
Yeah. The way it's headed, yeah, that'll be an empty tin shack in a couple months.
rename
Okay.
your town X.
Yeah. Formerly Bastrop. Okay, well, we're already dangerously veering into potentially dangerous territory. So why don't we drink some beer? That'll help. We are gathered here together because a while back, Scott and Adam and I got together and we did a mash your luck. I rolled the dice and it came up with, let's see, let me find the description here, a high ABV, very high bitterness, gold U.S. lager. And the three of us got together and we said, hey, you know what that sounds like? That sounds like a malt liquor. So I got together separately with Chris Colby and we formulated a recipe. And that recipe it's a 5-gallon batch, 19 liters. It was 14 pounds or 6.4 kilograms of Vienna malt, 2 pounds or 900 grams of flaked maize. I mashed at 148 degrees Fahrenheit or 64 C for 90 minutes. And I started out with a gallon more of water than I usually do because it's about 50% more grain than I would usually use on a 5-gallon batch. I used 1.5 grams of Epsom salt in the brew. At the beginning of the boil, I added 2 ounces or 56 grams of Hallertauer Magnum at 11.3% alpha acid. And I wound up boiling for 2 hours to get the original gravity of 1070. And I pitched a 2-liter starter of Imperial L17 Harvest. So I started at 1070, final gravity 1012 for an ABV of 7.6%. And let's talk about the fermentation. I used an oxygen zone at the beginning. I chilled down to 55 degrees Fahrenheit, I believe. And I fermented at that temperature. I did an diacetyl rest. And then I racked it into the keg, and what you're drinking there are keg fills from that keg. So, Scott, we were talking about the quote-unquote style of malt liquor, and you said that you've been doing some research around there on what people's definitions of malt liquor is. What'd you find out?
It seemed like it would start out that it was like a designation of anything over 5%. So it was kind of a legal classification. And then I just kept coming across people explaining the differences. So it sounds like less hops. It sounds like more adjuncts. Trying to just make a cheap, sweet beer.
And Adam, is that pretty much what you're thinking?
Yeah, I couldn't find a good static definition of what malt liquor meant. I mean, there's the colloquial, we all know what it is when we see it. I mean, they typically come in a 40-ounce bottle, and they don't always have a high reputation. But then, yeah, it could be a tax thing. It could be one state has a different definition based on taxes than another. It could be amount of hops. It doesn't seem to be a real concrete definition anywhere.
And Chris, your turn.
Yeah, malt liquor is generally, and it's not like a really defined style in the U.S., but it's generally just a sort of higher gravity pilsner. In Texas, where I lived, it used to, and for all I know, still might be, it used to be a designator of strength. Beers over 6%, I believe, had to be labeled malt liquor. So you would get like trying to think, there were some high gravity German ales, and they would have malt liquor written on it. Obviously not part of the original. It's sort of this random malt liquor,
or maybe even a Belgian.
Oh yeah, I'm sure all the Belgians would have had to. I don't recall seeing that, but yeah. So it certainly shows up in sort of texts and and TABC things in some states, but it's basically just strong. Basically, generally stronger American beer.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say, if malt liquor is the designator that it's a stronger beer, is there any definition where a double IPA could be a malt liquor? Or similarly, the Germans, when they get the beer strong enough, it's a Bock. Is like Bock and this, I almost don't want to say what I'm about to say. Is Bock like the German equivalent of a malt liquor?
I think the legal definition has changed. I mean, back in my day, back in the mid 80s when I was going to school, university, anything over 5%, I think it was back then, had to be labeled as a malt liquor. But I think they've relaxed that because certainly, you never see like IPAs at 6.5%, labeled as a malt liquor anywhere. So I think that the malt liquor definition or designation may be just a hangover, so to speak, from that time. I was going to send you guys this malt liquor in a quote-unquote malt liquor in 40-ounce bottles, but I bought a 40-ounce bottle of Mickey's Fine malt liquor, and I think fine should be legally in quotation marks, but it's not. And after I drank this one bottle, I said, I'm not buying any more of this. I'll just send you the regular.
I like that you suffered through the entire 40 ounces.
Oh, it was
and you just kept going.
Well, I was cooking. I was cooking, and I didn't want to waste my $3.40 or whatever I paid for it. It was one of those things where I kept drinking it a little bit to think, what is wrong with this? And I think I was a little buttery. I think I was a little diacetyl-y. Which surprised me because I figured it would be, I think, Chris, like you said, just like a strong Pilsner. But it was just not a very well-made beer, in my opinion.
Well, there goes your funding from Mickey's.
Yeah.
Advertising.
There goes that sponsorship. So the task at hand, again, it was supposed to be a high ABV, very high bitterness gold U.S. lager. I guess since you and I formulated the recipe, Chris, how close did we come to your vision of how this recipe was going to turn out? What do you think of the beer?
The color is darker than I would expect from just Vienna malt. I would wonder what the Lovabond rating was on the. Otherwise, we wanted. I forget what the IBUs we were shooting for, but it was fairly high, and it's bitter. And we didn't add any that I remember. We didn't add any late hops, so
No.
it's just upfront bitter. It's got sort of a light bit of foam that's clinging. I'd say the biggest deviation from what our recipe was is it just seems like it came out darker than I would expect.
Yeah.
And the deviation from like what normally is malt liquor is normally it wouldn't be that bitter. But then again, that was our thing. We made it bitter. So
Yeah, I looked up Avant-Garde Vienna, which is what I got from Small Batch Boutique, Dave Knott over in the Tulsa area. And in Brewfather, it was listed as predicted to be 2.8 degrees Lovabond. But according to the Avant-Garde website, their Vienna is 3.5 to 5 Lovabond, or 8 to 12 EBC, or 4 to 6 SRM. So I didn't plug those numbers into Brewfather to see what the color prediction would be on the screen, but that might account for the difference in color.
You're darker than 6 SRM.
Yeah.
This is 12 SRM maybe. This is amber. I wouldn't go so far as to say brown, but you're in amber territory.
you're in deep amber. There's also is it just me, or I'm getting like a little bit of a biscuit note to it, which like you normally wouldn't get with Vienna. I think this is maybe just a dark batch of their malt.
Yeah, I'm getting like the dark. I don't know. I don't use much biscuit, but I'm getting like almost a dark Munich, just a little a deeper maltiness than you would expect from just straight Vienna.
Was that Robert Paulson in the
That's
background?
Robert Paulson. Hang on, let me. I'll get him out of the room.
Scott, while the cat's being ejected, what's I'm leaving that. I've had to edit out so many cat noises from the Colby household. But Scott, what do you think of the beer?
I think you did a good job because I don't know that I'm a big fan. And I'm sorry, but it's been 25 years since I've had a malt liquor, and I think you hit it pretty good. It's it's a little sweet. Yeah, definitely malty. Maybe it's just not what I'm in the mood for right now, but it's tasty. It's well made. I don't find anything wrong with it.
Yeah, I don't detect any like flaws from poor fermentation at all. Do you guys?
No, not at all.
There's no like diacetyl's the easy one, and it's not diacetyl-y. And there's no like acetaldehyde or anything like that.
Yeah, really clean ferment. I don't get any fermentation flaws at all. If you were to call this an amber malt liquor, I'd say you hit it dead on. I don't know if amber malt liquor is a real thing, but
What was the hop variety you used?
It was. I just said it. Let's see. Magnum, essentially, Holler Tower Magnum.
Magnum. Okay. It seems like, although maybe this is simply because of the overall IBUs, but the bitterness seems to have like almost a harsh edge to it. Like, and I was just wondering, but Magnum's not really a particularly high cohumol hop. But I mean, but it's just like, I mean, obviously we formulated it to be very bitter, and I just got.
Yeah, for what it's worth, Magnum's essentially the only bittering hop I use at the brewery. So I use it because it's a very clean bitterness. I don't get the extra, and there is a little extra. It kind of hangs around. I don't know about if it's like a rough or harsh, but it is very bitter, and it's a bitterness that lingers after I'm done with the drink.
Now it's my efficiency was really bad. I just on the back of an envelope, I figured out it was like 55 to being generous, maybe 55% efficiency. And I looked at past similar brews with say 2-row or Pilsner, and I got a lot better efficiency. So I don't know if there was something specific about this batch of base malt that made it less efficient. So that because it was less efficient, I had to boil for 2 hours, which might have contributed to the increase in the color as well.
Oh, and also did you boil the hops for 2 hours?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That could explain some of the harshness too.
Because I was just planning on boiling for an hour. So I put them at the beginning of the boil, and there was like, I checked the gravity after an hour. I was like, no, we got a ways to go. I corresponded with Dave of Small Batch Boutique, and he said, being a malt liquor, he would have expected the addition of some sugar. And that might have solved, a couple of problems. That would have solved if I had put like a pound of sugar, at the beginning, of course, I knew my pre-boil gravity. But if I had thought to put like a pound of table sugar, that might have, that certainly would have increased the gravity, but it might have also decreased the color a teeny bit as well. So,
right. If I remember right, our formulation had flaked maize in it, right?
Yeah.
That was taking the place of the sugar. Yeah, I mean, you can do it with sugar, but
yeah, it was 2 pounds or 900 grams of flaked maize. So the yeast, I've already bragged about the Postal Service with another batch of beer. I ordered the ingredients, and they're just across the border over there in Tulsa. And so the estimated delivery time through the post office was 2 days. So I ordered a cold pack with the harvest from Imperial, And it took 4 days to get here instead of the 2 because they kept it in Fayetteville at the distribution center over the weekend, so which was nice of them to do. So by the time it got to me, the coal pack was melted. So I did a starter, and we went out of town, but our son Will was here to take pictures of the stir plate and everything. And I could tell there wasn't a vigorous fermentation with the first 2 liter starter, but you could tell that the color was lightening over time. So I could tell that the yeast was actually growing. So when I got back, I put that starter in the fridge, settled the yeast down, poured the beer off, made another 2 liter starter on top of that, and that took off like a rocket. So it was after that second buildup, the second yeast starter that I pitched. Of course, I put that back in the fridge, poured the beer off, and then used the dregs of that second starter to make this beer, and it fermented just fine. And it doesn't taste stressed.
Yeah, there's no fermentation flaws. It's absolutely the grain came off darker than you expected, or you picked up just a ton of colorization and borderline scorching, because this is 2 hours boil. As a home brewer, I never darkened a beer this much in 2 hours.
And I put, it was a little less than 4 gallons going into the fermenter, I think. So, I lost quite a bit of water. And I started with 9 gallons of water instead of the usual 8 gallons of water, because I wanted to make sure and wash all those sugars out of the grain. And Chris, you and I have done a show in the past where if you're doing a higher gravity beer, you strategically do want to add or allow for more water in the mashing process, right?
Yeah, I mean, the more pounds of or more weight of grain you have, the more volume of water you need to have that that same ratio that you rinse all the sugars out, but don't oversparge and start pulling out silicates and tannins and stuff like that. So yeah, there should be a specific water to grain ratio.
So let's see how the beer measured up to the rolls. High ABV. Now, Adam and Scott, you might have a variance of opinion between me and Colby on what we expected as far as high ABV. Scott, do you think 7.6% is high enough to be classified as high ABV?
I think that's the beginning. I think that's fine. I think 8 would make me happier, but I think 7.6, we'll take it.
I think, Adam, you would be more or less generous than Scott, probably.
Oh, absolutely. You missed the target. So when I originally built the parameters for the mash your luck, I was just going off the for better or worse, I was going off what the Cicerone program had laid out for these categories, and they do define high as 9 to 12%.
Oh, wow. Well, FYI, let's see, where was it I saw Mickey's Big Mouth had, do they list the ABV? I thought they did. I think I looked it up, and it's like 5.6. Yes, there it is, 5.6%.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So they say ingredients: water, barley malt, corn syrup, yeast, hop extract. Corn syrup is used as part of the brewing process only. Mickey's never uses high fructose corn syrup, it says. So
if you're drinking malt liquor, you should not be concerned about high fructose versus regular corn syrup.
I only drink malt liquor that
right. that fructose corn syrup. Never mind. Good looking out, Mickey's.
Okay, so
well, you definitely put more love into it.
That's my secret.
Is that what that flavor is?
Calm down. Brewed with love.
I think 7.5% is, like, for me, it would qualify as high. Like, if I had two of these, I'd go fight someone in a bar.
Do you really need to, Chris?
Yeah, I get better. I get better at things as I drink more, according to one part of my brain.
Yeah, no, a 12%, an 11% alcohol malt liquor would be insane. It would fit the criteria here of the challenge, but that would be too much. That is slow down.
One of those, and I can't remember which. There was a European brewery back in the day, and maybe still, there was this beer called Special Lager, which was a 9%, essentially a 9% ABV Pilsner type beer, and that was popular with the band Motorhead back in the day. They really liked that, and other hard rock bands. It was if people were in the upper part of Europe, they tended to get that. I forget if it was it Heineken beer. So, but yeah, that was only like 1.5% higher than this.
So we're split on the high ABV category. The next category is very high bitterness.
Yeah, it's bitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I almost want to drink a water after this. It's hanging around. It's bitter.
Yeah. I don't think we can argue about that. Gold. I think we can be unanimous on that.
Yeah.
It's kind of a brown gold. Is that a thing?
Sure. No.
Extraordinarily deep gold.
It's some gold covered in mud. And
it's chocolate
coated in copper.
It's like a gold chocolate coin after you take the gold foil off. That's
There you go.
Okay, so it's not gold. U.S.
Where else would it be?
I made it
Sure.
in the U.S.
Perfect.
Scott, so this is, as I'm drinking this is reminding me of when I was in college. There's a store where I could buy like 3-liter plastic bottles of beer, and they were all typically from breweries I'd never heard of in Europe, and I want to say a lot of them were Eastern European or Russian. They were dirt cheap, and I will say my palate wasn't very refined back in college, but they were probably worth what the price tag on them. And that sounds like an insult to the beer, James, but it's reminding me of that. It's giving me vibes. When you say where else, I'm like, there are parts of the world where you can get a beer similar to this.
Now, I'm not insulted by negative comments on this beer because we put together this recipe wanting to meet these criteria, not necessarily wanting to knock it out of the park as far as being a really great beer. Now, I would take negative criticism well if you said that it was not fermented well. That would be my fault, kind of. But you're not going to, this is not one of my babies. You're not going to hurt my feelings if you don't like this beer.
I'm going to drink all of it. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm about to drink all of it. I'm getting there.
I'm enjoying it more than the Mickey's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've actually grown to like it. I think, and especially as we head into fall, it's kind of almost like an Imperial Oktoberfest or something. If someone were to give you this beer and say it's like an Imperial Vienna Lager or something like that, some kind of bastardized Americanization of a classic European style of this color, would you be suspect of that?
Still too bitter for that. I would lower the bitterness or let it age for a year, and then maybe I can see that.
And the final category, it is a lager. I mean, there's no getting around that.
Nice and clean.
Used lager yeast. I fermented at lager temperature. I did it at Ulster West.
But you didn't ferment under pressure.
Ding, 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 ding. It's a Vienna Imperial Pale Lager.
Oh, and by the way, I've been sampling from a fresh keg pour versus the the keg pour bottle because I had one of those left. I didn't send you guys all of them, and they taste very similar. So I don't detect any oxidation or anything from my keg fill bottling process, which is good. So anyway,
Yeah, mine still has a head hanging on there, a little bit.
Yeah.
Covers the whole thing.
I've still got foam.
So
I can't remember if I put a carbonation drop in there or not. Or not a carbonation drop, but one of the little aspirin-sized things. We did an experiment. Steve and I did an experiment where I did keg fills and then primed some of them with one or two of the little aspirins. Maybe I did 3. No, it's one or two.
You put aspirin in this? Okay, that makes sense.
No, that's where the bitterness comes from.
That's the flavor.
It cures your headache as you're getting it. No, it's the aspirin-sized sugar tablets. So don't put aspirin in your beer. So there we go. So let's poll everybody. Chris, thumbs up or thumbs down?
Yeah, thumbs up. I mean, I think we hit. Other than the gold part, it's a high gravity, high bitterness beer.
Scott, thumbs up, thumbs down.
I'll give you a thumbs up. I'm coming around on it. I think I just wasn't quite expecting what I got.
the not drunk enough Scott voice has been quieted.
Well, and I do like your tagline: "Cures your headache while you're getting it."
Adam, thumbs up, thumbs down.
It's like 3/4 of the way up. Hedonistically, I really enjoy this beer, but I still got to hold you to you didn't hit the criteria of high alcohol.
Okay, all right. I'll take it. I think it's all right. Considering it turned out way different from what I was expecting, but it's a beer and it drinks pretty good, so. I'll give it, selfishly, I'll give it a thumbs up as well.
It would be fun if you can find a way to add a little bit of spice and save some for Christmas. This would be a fun one to bring out with friends and family. Maybe that's a 7.5% alcohol beer talking. I don't know. I think that sounds like a fun time to me.
You could just sprinkle some of the smoked habanero powder in there, and
there you go.
So if you were to try it again, if you did it with something like a Weirmann Vienna or one of those German Viennas with a 3 Lovibond rating,
mm-hmm.
that would bring the color way down. If you still used the same amount of flaked maize, and then I think you'd be way closer to your goal, and then you also wouldn't have to boil for so long, which would probably help with Magnum hops. It would help not, it'd be a more straight bitterness without the sort of, what do you call it? Overtaste or
that harshness,
lingering taste.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
What do you think about, how would you all feel about, tackling a malt liquor by relying on amylase enzyme? So you come in with less grain, but you also finish much, much drier.
So a dry malt liquor?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, in a lot of the commercial malt liquors, they do, there are some that use amylase enzymes, and there's others that just rely on long step mashes to get the increased fermentability. But yeah, you could use amylase.
And I'm asking that as I've already done it once, somewhat accidentally. I had a very small batch in our pilot system that was like 1035 starting, and I used amylase, and it finished at like 0.996 or something. So it was like 5.5% alcohol when it finished, and it was enjoyable. It was a little too bitter. I actually want to do it again because I just my bitterness was like 12, and it probably should have been like 3 to make it really enjoyable. But it wasn't as offensive as you might think, and actually it just sold fairly quickly.
Sounds like the ultimate in reviews on what Untapped. Not as offensive as I would think.
It definitely was the beer that our staff and me decided to try and see if we could still do a chugging contest.
Oh God,
college, and yeah, spoiler alert, I finished last. I couldn't do it.
Old man.
I know if I do it again, I might have to give up control of the brewery. So I was emasculated with that.
The classic, like, Untapped review, like for a stout, would be, "This is terrible. I only like pale beers."
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And this is one of the other classics. This is the best stout I've ever had in my life. 2.5 stars out of 5.
Yeah.
I used to, when I was on Twitter and Untapped was the thing on Twitter and people were posting all their badges on Twitter. I used to make up Untapped badges. I just earned the hiding my recycling among the neighbors badge on Untapped. Okay. Shall we do another? Mash Your Luck?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I've volunteered to, since Scott, you're doing the grape beer. Adam, you're doing the, you've already got a Mash Your Luck. Chris, you're still working on that fruit beer from a few years ago.
Yeah. Pathetic.
So
Who said that?
not me. I think Chris. That was Robert Paulson, the cat. Okay.
James volunteers as tribute. Is that what you're saying?
Do what now?
You're volunteering as tribute.
As tribute. It's another reference I might have to cut out because I don't get it.
Because it was in a movie that came out in the last 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
And it was Hunger Games.
Ow.
You're right.
Ouch.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
I'm sorry. It's the malt liquor. It's getting to me.
Now you're just cruel. Make fun of the old guy. Colby's almost... No, you're maybe older than me.
Am I?
I think
Could be.
You might. I don't know.
Older than dirt.
My name?
Somehow.
My name, Methuselah. So, okay. So the first category is ABV. And originally we had 1 to 5 from very low to very high. I've been leaning against rolling very low just because of food safety concerns and, bottling beers and sending them across the country and all that. And I know, Adam, you'll probably push back on me, push back on this. But what do you think, Adam? I mean, should I have the option of taking out the very low if I want to?
I'm with Colby on that. If I have another one of these beers, I'm going to fight someone. So maybe don't ask me. But you can have shelf-stable beer at 3% or under. So,
well, 3% I could deal with. I'm thinking like 1 or 2% is very low. What's the official definition? Instigator of the game. What would you, Adam? What would you think would be very low?
anything under 3 or under.
Okay. So, okay, I can deal with that. I could do like a 3% beer.
We did that table beer that turned out good, and that was what, like 2.5?
Yeah, that's before the the Brewers Association started like warning people against very low alcohol beers and stuff without pasteurization.
The Brewers Association.
We survived for years before that. We will survive for years after.
So the plan.
Yeah, if I got it.
Go ahead.
I would just do 3% if I ended up with very low at this point.
Okay. All right. Well, I can deal with that. Okay. So the plan is, Chris, and I can't remember if I've talked to you about this or not, but we will come up with these characteristics, and then you and I will get together on the next podcast and actually get together and formulate the recipe, nuts and bolts, just like we did with the malt liquor that turned out so well. So, okay. So we got 1 to 5 on the little random generator thing. And you guys might not be able to hear it, but I'm going to play a sound effect that signifies that I'm rolling or spinning the wheel. Here we go. Oh, here we go. Very high.
Nice.
Very high.
Ooh, very high. Nice.
Over 12, sir.
ABV. So now we're talking.
Is it over 12? Really?
Over 12 is if we're going by Cicerone guidelines.
Woo, hello.
All right, let's do it. Saddle up.
Wall 'em up.
Wall them up.
Okay, bitter.
Well, he gets a joker. He could always end up saying, he doesn't like that.
I'm down with a very high. We can do a small batch and do a very high. Okay, bitterness, we have low to very high, 1 to 5. And here we go. Oh, no. Low bitterness.
Okay.
Why is that? No. What's wrong with that?
Well, I guess, it's Scotch ale. You could do a Scotch ale.
This is perceived bitterness. This isn't like you need to do 5 IBUs or anything. It's
Doppelbocks aren't particularly, they're strong. Not 12% strong.
That's
they're strong. What's up?
Icebox gets you to 12 and isn't very bitter.
So we could freeze, just quote unquote distill, freeze fortify.
You can.
I have a letter somewhere in my email from the TTB saying I can. So
There you
go. Okay, color. We have pale gold, amber, brown, and black. So it's 1 to 5 again. Here we go. Ooh, black.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh.
So far, I like it. Okay, now here's the.
So massive stout.
Well, now we have the type, and that is right now we have the type as lager, ale, or sour. And I guess I'll be a strong figure and and leave the sour in there. So okay, here we go. So here we go.
Sour.
It's sour.
Yeah.
We did it, Scott. We willed it into existence.
You guys. And I do
James, I have I might send some of you this. I have about an 12% alcohol sour stout in a tank right now. So
Wow.
can we just do that one?
Fine. At the end, I'll see if I'm doing this or not, I guess.
Okay, so origin, we started out with just U.S., Germany, and the U.K., but Matt Giovanisi played, and we've added some more. See what you guys think. We have U.S., Germany, U.K., Belgium, Australasia, Scandinavia, and the rest of the world.
I want to know where he's getting Scandinavian malt or Australian malt.
Well, Scandinavia, you could do like, and I've forgotten the name of it again. The Keptinus, which is the roasted, which would be a fun one for this one, where you roast a malt in the roast a mash in the oven and darken it. That'd be fun. Of course, there's also Kvike. Is kind of a Scandinavian influence.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Are you going for it? All 7?
Why not? Matt did it.
Sure.
I'm not less of a person than Matt. Okay, here we go. I probably am, but here we go. Oh, for crime and Nutley. The rest of the world.
Oh, right. So anywhere but those other places.
No 2 ingredients can come from the same country.
Oh, that's a good interpretation. So I've got a joker. You know where I'm going to use the joker?
Sour.
Or Colby, Chris, where should we use the joker?
Get rid of the sour.
Okay.
That's just bad.
We got very high ABV, low bitterness, black,
That's fine.
sour from the world. Okay, so here we go. Here comes the Joker. Now, Giovannici, Matt, I don't know why I'm using people's last names this time, but Matt got sour twice. So let's see what happens.
Sour.
Aha! Lager.
What?
Icebox. Icebox. Icebox.
And it's triple.
Shoo! I think we dodged a bullet. It's still not going to be real easy, though. Very high ABV.
This game never said anything about easy.
Plus, you guys are completely trusting me. That.
Well, I was going to say, I think when you play that sound, you're just picking out which one you want to pick. There.
You already have.
It's like not really random. It's James random.
I should do that. I should do that part on. I should turn my camera back on to play that part. But I swear to you guys, I'm honest. I'm honest to a fault. Very high ABV, low bitterness, black, lager, and then world. So of the world.
It has to be Icebox. I don't know any other option you got here, James.
I mean, if we wanted,
go ahead.
Okay.
Show no imagination and go to the BGCP, we could brew some sort of Baltic porter.
Yeah.
Oh, Baltic porter. That's like Russia, right? Or
that's a part of the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
So far.
It's definitely a part of the world.
Well, actually, Baltic porter sounds pretty good. I don't know. What do you think, Scott? Where would you go if you got those categories?
I don't know. I would see. I mean, it's really nice to have a starting point, but I would see about not specifically shooting for a style, of just kind of trying to meet these parameters and, kind of looking at what's close, but not really trying to make that specific beer.
Mm.
Well, you landed there with the Malt Liquor, James, so we know you're capable of that.
I went outside the parameters. I brewed a brown beer that was supposed to be gold. Well, it sounds delicious, actually. It sounds like kind of a holiday beer. We're heading into fall. The first day of fall was yesterday, day before yesterday, and it's supposed to cool off this week. So this sounds like a delicious beer. It sounds like a good beer to bottle in smaller bottles, than like a 12-ounce even.
You can fill a Mickey's bottle for me.
I'll send you.
Yeah, I was going to say I'd like a 12 also with the smaller bottles.
I'll send you this 40-ounce Mickey's that I have in my hand, full of this. It'll be half the batch. But so, Chris, are you up to the challenge of formulating this beer next time?
Back in the day, I formulated some very high gravity stouts for a publication that will remain nameless, and I brewed them. I think, I think we can do this.
All right.
And what I'd recommend you do, make a 5-gallon batch of any sort of normal strength lager beer, and that 5 gallons of that, and that'll be your yeast starter for this.
Oh,
make a straight up American Pilsner or a nice Vienna lager or a anything smaller than a Bock, like a nice Helles or something like that, and because you're going to want at a high gravity lager, you're going to want lots and lots of yeast.
That's a good point.
You'll have a Helles to drink too. Then.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe it's a twofer. Maybe it's maybe we do a light lager, light in color lager, and then it's dark evil twin.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Could name them, yeah. Helles and Bock or something.
Surely somebody's done that to Helles and Bock.
Yeah, that's obvious. I'll give you that.
Did you do that on purpose, or did I just listen wrong?
No, I did that on purpose.
Okay, thank you.
Sometimes I do things on purpose.
It's like I thought I was a genius when I came up with the name of a beer called Clusterfuggle, and
that's a good one.
but then like 12 breweries are brewing a Clusterfuggle already.
Oh.
So, no, there's no original ideas left. They're all out there. Okay, guys. Well, we can hit the stop button. We don't have to, we can still drink my bitter brown beer, but
I finished it.
Yeah, I'm almost done.
That ship has sailed for me.
All right. Well, thank you all.
I have a couple IPAs from you.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We'll save one of the. Well, I have to save one of those for a show beer next time. All right. Thanks,
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, James.
Right.
Thanks, James.
Many thanks to Scott and to Adam and to Chris. Chris and I are set to get together later this week to formulate that big, black, worldly lager. I have some interesting ideas to do bring in the world influence, I think it's going to be a good one. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com or just fill out the contact form at basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Check out our mobile-friendly shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody supporting us through our Patreon page. Special goodies coming your way. Check that out at patreon.com/basicbrewing. I need some more coffee. Thanks. That's all for until next time. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dotson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. In the meantime, stay well and stay tuned. So long.